What about when you've just had surgery, or you've just had an eye test, or you've simply lost your glasses? We've all done that. These are all quite normal situations that many of us have been through, but because it's temporary, we kind of forget about it and move on, but we shouldn't. If I break my arm, I can't use a mouse. Can I use your website? And this is why the things like the Zoom levels, it's not just for people who are visually impaired. If you've just been for an eye test and your eyes are bad, you need to be able to access your content if you need it. Annually, 5% of all people experience situations such as this, short-term disabilities, basically. 50% of all business-to-business inquiries are now done by people either on the move or in a location that we cannot predict. So again, that's a different situation that we're tackling. Users sitting at a desk like I am right now with the equipment that you'd expect, such as a mouse and a keyboard, is also on the decline. So desktop PC sales declined 26% in 2020. That's a lot. And users are browsing on their phone using mobile data now. So they're out and about a lot more, browsing online rather than just sat on the sofa. Mobile data has increased 369%. So these are all different situations. Another situational limitation to consider is noise. That's a massive one, a common one. Subtitles have become relied upon not just by people with disabilities, but by people who don't basically want to be rude on their commute. You still get someone, don't you, who's blasting it out, but more often than not, people are using subtitles to access and watch videos. Ofcom even brought out an official statement on it, saying that our understanding is that subtitle use has increased as the use of smart mobile devices has increased, as more and more people watch programs or videos on their commute. So really interesting stuff. And hipsters as well. Hipsters, they're a pain, aren't they? But I'm only joking. We like hipsters, but environments are another situational limitation which we should consider. And where do hipsters often live? In coffee shops. So coffee shops make for actually a great example of this. We've all been in coffee shops. We've seen loads of people on laptops, tablets, iPads working away. That's almost their office. This is due to good coffee. It's probably a nice space, and it has internet. It's been, they provide internet in there. Working in these types of environments is also actually really good for creative people. So BBC Work Life tells us that the combination of noise, casual crowds, and visual variety can give us just the right amount of distraction to help us be our sharpest and most creative, which is really interesting and shows why people work in those spaces. However, the situational limitations of working in such an environment can be things like the environment could be really noisy, which goes back to my previous point. The speed of the internet can be really slow. And if your website is slow for that user, it then makes it really hard for them to, access your content quickly. The internet in this coffee shop may be a user's only way of accessing content online. If you consider students, low-income users, etc., this might be, the Wi-Fi in their local coffee shop may be their internet. It may be their only access to the internet. And finally, it may be the only safe place someone actually feels like they can access certain information online, such as help websites. Another situational limitation is that we're all just really busy. This mother with her 2 children might be trying to find something urgent, urgent information out. She can't find that information fast. She's gone. She's out of there. She's left your website and she's moved on to the next one. A dad with a baby in one arm and his iPad in the other, trying to find out how to stop them crying. I can relate to that right now. That is a situation that a dad might find himself in. People don't sit at a desk and do this stuff, their research. We move and we move fast and we're using our devices and we don't have time. And because of that, bounce rate is the measure of users visiting and then leaving your website after only one page. You can check bounce rate in Google Analytics, which you should all hopefully have and be tracking. And you will see that the rate is much higher on mobile and tablets, which, kind of further enforces the case for this. So help people in situations by providing them with information your users need, not what you want them to hear about. So on desktop, you may be thinking about like, we need to say this and we need to explain that. But on mobile, you have to think about the situation that person is in is going to be very different. They're maybe not doing their research. They're maybe trying to find the resource, find the help, find the crisis line, whatever it is. So again, consider these situational differences and the limitations that people can find themselves in.